Welcome to Line Developer Day 2020. I hope you have enjoyed all the session until now. In the next 20 minutes, I will introduce some best practice and what's new with Line SDK. I'm Wei Wang from Dev Center 3. Today, my topic would be split to 3 parts. First, I will introduce the Line SDK, what can it do, and how it can help to improve your app development. Next, I will introduce what's new in Line SDK this year. We were working hard to add a bunch of new features and a lot of improvements for it. Finally, we will talk about some best practices we found in our development. First, what is Line SDK? Basically, it provides a modern way of implementing Line login and Line APIs and mobile platforms. Line SDK is composed by 3 main parts. First, Line login. It provides an easy way to log in for your users. Your user can log in and start to use your service without registration and creating your own user system. They can just log in with Line and use your app. Then Line SDK provides a lot of Line APIs. It's a Line API client and help your app to talk to Line service quickly. Third, it brings a lot of built-in UI, which can simplify your work when creating Line-related app. We have a lot of versions. From 2014, we released the first public version, Line SDK version 3. And in 2018, we have released the Line SDK version 5, which is also an open source project. In the last year, we also released the Line SDK for Unity and the Line SDK for Flutter. So now Line SDK is a cross-platform project. You can create your app with Line SDK on multiple platforms. The core functionality of Line SDK is Line login. It helps you to get user information in a trustable way, and you can create your user system based on their Line accounts. Finally, you can get the permissions from your user to get the access token to use other Line APIs. To get started with Line SDK, I suggest to check the Getting Started documentation on the Developer Console. So, what's new in SDK this year? We worked on a lot of features, and I will introduce it now. First, it's one-time sharing. It's very exciting features. Think about your app can send messages to Line app. Line is the core app of our company. Our users really love it and use it every day to keep closing with each other. And one-time sharing enables the ability for your app to send messages to Line. There are 4 steps to get it work. First, get the permissions. This year, we add a one-time share feature license you can apply for. And once applied, you can add a one-time.share permission when your user log into your app. It's very easy. You just add one option to the permission setting when logging, and the login screen will show it so your user can agree with it. Second, create a message. Line SDK provides a beautiful interface to create all kinds of messages, from simple text, image, to more complicated video, audio, and more. Let's take a look at some examples. First, the text message is very simple, just like you send to your friends or a group every day in Line. And you can make a more complicated one. For example, a dialogue with title and this message with 2 buttons. Your user can interact with 2 buttons and you can get the response. Or even more complicated, a flexible message. You can decide your own layout and content to get a rich experience for your user. Then you need to choose a destination. where to send the messages. We have a built-in friends and group pickers for you. Using it is very easy. It's just one line code, and you call it LINE SDK, bring it up to collect information. It provides a universal user experience and also customizable. You can define your tint color and text color to make the picker match your app style. And of course, we support dark mode out of the box. It's also possible if you want to create the UI from scratch yourself. So, the final step, sending the message. If you are using the built-in picker, there is nothing to worry about. Your user just tap the send and everything gets done. But if you are building your own UI, you need to do more, and we have write a detailed guide for it in our developer site. Summary of the one-time sharing. First is sending messages from your app to LINE. You need to apply new feature license and permissions, and it provides delightful and powerful message APIs. Finally, built-in and customizable UI. Next, we are going to talk about LINE OpenChat. OpenChat is a service we released last year, and we found our users really love it. It's a talk room for common interests and topics. A user can make a group without friend relationship, and everyone can join and talk. We also love it. This year, LINE SDK also supports OpenChat. You can create and join an OpenChat room by LINE SDK. Similar, you need feature license and permissions from user. The basic workflow is really simple. Your user want to create a room, and it tells LINE SDK maybe a button. And LINE SDK takes the responsibility of collect some information from user. LINE SDK brings up this kind of beautiful form to collect room name, description, and category of the room. After LINE SDK gets this information, it sends it to LINE server. And LINE server creates a room and returns the room ID and URL. LINE SDK then delivers the room ID and URL to your user. Then your user can use this URL to open LINE app directly and be navigated to exactly the chat room and start talking. LINE OpenChat support. It can help create and join an OpenChat room. Also, feature license and permissions is required. It can increase customer stickiness for your app, and also built-in and customizable UI. There are also other changes. I will briefly introduce it here. First, when the user is logging to LINE, if the LINE app is not installed, a web page will be shown, and user can input their email address and password for login. Before, we only provide a single language English interface for it. And from this year, we provide all localization for it, which LINE also supports. We have a better OAuth compatibility this year. To identify user when exchanging access token when logging, we need a way to verify the user is exactly who initialized the request. Before, we were using one-time password challenge. From now on, we are using proof key for code exchange, which is also a standard. It provides the same security level as before, but now we are full OAuth 2.0 compatibility. That means you can use any other OAuth 2.0 client to log in with LINE. Next, let's talk about tokens. When a user logs in, the LINE server will issue a pair of tokens, not only one, but two tokens to user. One is an access token. It is used to access granted APIs. And another is a refresh token. It is used to refresh the access token. In current refresh token model, we have different expiration lengths for for these tokens. The access token lasts for 30 days, and the refresh token is longer for 90 days. When user refresh the token, another 30 days access token will be issued, and the original access token will be extended by that. But the refresh token keeps the same. User can refresh more than once. For example, another refresh and another 30 days. However, if the refresh token also gets expired, user cannot refresh the access token anymore. So when the access token also expires, they need to log in again. This year, we have a new model. It's a new opt-in refreshable model. We call it refreshable refresh token. Compared to the original model, we have a shorter refresh token expiration duration now from 90 days to 40 days. And when user refresh the token, besides of the access token, the refresh token will be also refreshed. So you have another 40 days to refresh another token. So that means if your user is keeping using your app, and if you are in this model, your user will be never log out. You need to choose the refresh model between two. The default model is default for all channels. If you create a channel before or from now on, you will get this default model. And it's for general use cases. All existing implementation will be not affected. And the new refreshable model, it requires special feature license. And it's for frequency user and situations. Line SDK upgrading is not needed. You just apply the feature license and you are done. Now let's talk about some best practice we found when we're using Line SDK. The first principle of using Line SDK is do not trust your client. Your server should never trust any unsigned information from your client. Let's take a look at the example. Your app requests a login to Line SDK, and Line SDK returns user ID, name, and an access token to your app. Now your app wants to create the user or log in the user to your server. We found some developers just send the user ID and name to the server to finish it. Never do it. Your app can be malformed and anyone can send this kind of request to your server. Instead, send the access token you received from Line SDK to your server, and then let your server talk to Line server with the access token, calling the profile API to get the correct user ID and name. Second, prefer using ID token. If you only need to identify user instead of using other Line APIs, you do not ever need an access token. In this time, you can use the ID token to verify user. The same when you want to log in. Now you can add an option to say, I want ID token to Line SDK. Then Line SDK will return your ID token, and you pass the ID token to your server. So what is the ID token? It's basically a JSON web token containing user information. And it's safely signed with ECDSA. That means the content inside the token will be never modified. Last, you also need to verify it against the Line's public key, but you have choice. When your server receives the ID token, it can choose to just verify in place on your server with Line's public key. Or Line server also implement a verification API entry point. You can use that to verify your token. To help you verify the login and secure your app login, we prepared a bunch of guides and documentations. Keep in mind and make sure to read it. Next, prefer using universal link. This can prevent URL scheme hijacking for your app. You may notice that you are required to input the iOS bundle ID when you're creating an app in Line Developer Console. we are using that app bundle ID as a URL scheme to jump from Line app back to your app when logging. In this case, we will show another additional confirmation window to let user know where they would be navigated to. Sometimes it's annoying. To skip the confirmation before returning, you can use the universal link to provide a safe way to navigating. First, set up iOS universal link in Line Developers Console. Second, set up the domain and link it to your app. You can refer to Apple's universal link for developers documentation for that. Last, initialize Line SDK with that universal link, and Line SDK will handle other things for you. There is a using universal link documentation to guide you step by step to implement it. Finally, do not refresh token on your server. We found a typical use case when your app login and you get the access token and refresh token. You send both to your server. Sending access token to your server is expected, but sending refresh token to your server is not. We found some implementation that your server using the refresh token to refresh the access token against the Line server and get a new access token just on your server. We do not recommend to do it. Instead, you should let Line SDK to talk with Line server directly and get the new access token. And then Line SDK will notify your app as the new access token gotten. So that means the recommended way to refresh is do nothing. Just leave it to Line SDK. We have a mechanism called auto-refreshing. All public API calls refresh the access token whenever necessary, and your app can get a notification when the token refreshed. An error would happen when the refresh token also expires, so you can handle the error. For example, let the user to log in again gently. So summary, do not try to refresh the token yourself. Although it's not forbidden, but it's dangerous. You can have a lot of unexpected behaviors because user can revoke your token in Line app. The token can be expired and a lot of other cases. So let SDK do it. Some conclusions. First, the safety and privacy is the first consideration when we're creating the Line SDK. We don't have any client tracking, and there is no server control behaviors. That means what you get while you're developing is exactly what you get in your release build. Line SDK is also a first-class project in our company. What we are providing is what we are using. There is a lot of apps like Manga, Line Music, Line Pay, and Line Life. They are all using the same Line SDK as we provide open source to you. So any issues found issues will be addressed as soon as it's possible. Last, Line SDK is an open source software. You can check it under our company GitHub account and get more information. Any contribution is welcome. If you are not still using Line SDK to your app, please consider to register as a Line developer and get started with Line SDK. To add Line login to your app may bring you more users. And if you want to add Line SDK to your app, we have a great guides in the documentation site. If you want more powerful APIs, and you can consider to become a business partner in the link below. Thank you very much.